Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, episode 121. Fantastic guest tonight. Can't wait to get him on. It would take us an hour to go through his accomplishments, so let me just call him right away. Ty Tucker. Love Ty Tucker. Director of tennis and men's head tennis coach, Ohio State. Got one ring. Here we go.
What's going on, Coach?
Ty Tucker, thank you for your time. I just told our listeners it would take us an hour for me to read your accomplishments. So, with congratulations on the Ty Tucker Tennis Center. That's me. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I haven't been able to say that name, but it's quite a facility. So we've enjoyed being able to compete in it the last two seasons, and it's a nice facility. It's obviously helping with recruiting and everything we're trying to do here.
Well, I think it sums it up. You've certainly had to win a bunch to have a building with your name on it. I'll have to get back up to Columbus and see that. I know when you drive into town, you see that sign that says Jack Nicklaus Museum. But that's fantastic, the Ty Tucker Tennis Center. Knowing you, Ty, I don't think you take much time to reminisce. I think you're all about today's practice and the next match. But I'd like to just pull a story out of you, a story that I think defines what you've done and what your players have done at Ohio State. Kevin Metka. Let's talk about Kevin Metka. What's the first thing that comes to your mind with the Kevin Metka story?
You know, Kevin Metka was probably, we've been fortunate to have some hard workers, but there was probably not a tougher guy or a harder worker than that I've had my entire career at Ohio State than Kevin Metka. Kevin Metka was certainly makes this job worth it. Being able to spend some time with Kevin Metka, a guy that started off as, 200, 250 on tennis recruiting, came to Ohio State, tall left-handed player, gave everything he had for 3 years, redshirted, and then finally got in the lineup and took off like nobody's ever taken off. And it was all the way to having match points in the NCAA doubles finals. So, Kevin Metka did a great deal for Ohio State athletics department, and I miss Kevin. Wish with the season approaching right now, I wish Kevin was still around for another year.
Yeah, I've done some homework. Native Ohio. I heard someone once say that Ty Tucker's put a fence around Ohio, and he develops Ohio kids, which is great. He didn't start playing tennis to the 9th grade, and I have down in my notes he was a 3-4 star before he finally became a 4-star before he went to Ohio State. But he's quoted saying he was the worst player and didn't really crack your lineup until his 3rd year. So he redshirted. Tell us your thoughts on it. We'll go more over Kevin, but just redshirting in general and. But go ahead.
Well, redshirting, with Kevin, he redshirted, but then all of a sudden, you've got to trim down your roster from 10 to 9 when the NCAA tournament comes about. So, in his 3rd year, he was the casualty. He was the cut that we made. And at the NCAA tournament that year, I think we lost to UCLA. Your son, Connor Smith, took care of, maybe it was Puget for UCLA, and he was taking care of USC and everybody on a run. We lost in the semifinals that year to UCLA, and strange NCAA because UCLA actually beat Virginia, but the guy stepped on the net. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was like team match point for UCLA to win.
I remember that.
Yeah, and but that year, and we were in Champaign, and Kevin obviously didn't get a play. You had to narrow it down to 9, so we kept another guy in the mix to play, and that was Kevin's 3rd year. So, he did all this work his 4th and his 5th year, and so funny. I put him on the doubles court at National Indoors. Nobody'd ever seen him to play.
Yeah, the listeners, he'd hit a double fault and he'd say, "Go Bucks." He would miss a forehand wide and say, "Go Bucks."
Oh yeah, he cared. He was He was great. It was so funny because we put him on national indoors in Seattle, and we played Virginia, and they'd never seen the guy, and he played doubles with Rolla at 3 doubles, and beat Damajan, and whoever Damajan's partner was that day. It was like 6-0 or 8-1 or some. I don't know if they were playing 6 or 8 games at that time in doubles, but it was people were like it was great because people were like, oh my gosh, that's Law's Rolla. So they were like trying to keep the ball away from Rolla, and Metka might have been the better doubles player. So it worked out well for us.
I became a fan. Obviously, I got a chance to watch Kevin when my son was there for 2 years, but my son had graduated, and I remember watching online. I wasn't fortunate enough to go to Georgia that spring, and he, I think it was either round of 16 or round of 8, a kid that I worked with. I really worked more with his coach, but Mike Alford. Alford had a couple of match points. It was 10-8. Was that the round of 16 or round of 8? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the round of 16. I think that was the round of 16 with there that year. So I think it was a night match. I think it was dark if memory serves me right. So
yeah, it was a night.
I think it ended, and I remember there was nowhere to. We were driving around trying to order fast food. I think it was so late that the match ended. Guys were starving and.
Go ahead.
Athens, Georgia. We might have been in the Zaxby's or somewhere trying to get something to eat after that.
Obviously, I'd say he's a physical specimen. I remember my son Connor at one of the meals told me, he goes, just don't try to talk to Kevin once the food comes. But
yeah, he was good. I mean, probably 6'3", 195, big lefty. The funny thing was and it summed it up, is we had I don't even know what it was, 200 match home winning streak that had spanned 13, 14 years, 2 or 3 different facilities. And we might have been 3 or 4 in the country. And John Roddick brought Oklahoma into town to play us. And they were 1 in the country. And came last match on, and Kevin Metka, against an Oklahoma guy, and Metka had 2 match points, and the fire department had they had set up shop there. There were 200 people outside. They were only letting people in if somebody left. The place was shaking. The indoor was shaking, and we had double match points, and Kevin Metka ended up losing the match. Thought the guy double faulted on match point. Kevin played it, and we ended up losing that match, and the 200 match win streak was broken. But I remember putting in they came up to afterwards, the newspapers, and there's a lot of media there, and I said if we had it to do over again, that's the guy we'd won on the court with coming down to the end. So there's probably no better compliment I could give somebody. We just lost their 14-year home winning streak, and it was the longest home winning streak in college athletics, and still is. And, but Kevin Metka was the guy that went out there if the chips were down again.
Yeah, I got down the notes 6'7", 7'6", 7'6". And then John Roddick had so many nice things to say about Metka. All-American, that's just, again, I think it defines your program. Guy comes in, he's from Ohio. I guess it had
we've done very, very well with Ohio guys. It goes back a long time. Scott Green, Ross Wilson, Chris Diaz, Peter Cobelt, Alex Cobelt, Justin Kroenogge, Chase Buchanan, Kevin Metka. It just, the list goes on, and it's for us it's pretty simple because NCAA rules only let kids practice full time with their coach for 144 days. The rest of the time you're in a downtime where you're allowed 4 hours of tennis and 4 hours of conditioning, but you're only allowed 144 days. But, over Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and summer break, it's unlimited practice with your student athletes as long as they volunteer their time. So, having kids being local and from Ohio, these kids end up, with, 300 days a year of full-time practice because they're so close, and their parents are supportive of the program and say, hey, you don't have to get a summertime job if you're going to volunteer your time and, work all summer on your game and things like that. But, you look at it, and most of these kids we recruit, they're big time student athletes. They're practicing tennis six days a week minimum to get to where they are. To have an Ohio State recruit them, to have a Georgia recruit them, to have a Texas recruit them. UCLA. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, yeah, just imagine. And then all of a sudden, you get to college, and you really only have to do 144 days a year with your coach. So, I wouldn't even recruit kids at 16, 17, 18 if they were only practicing or competing 144 days a year. Yeah. So getting these Ohio kids to where, they can buy into it. You can put them in a 300-day-a-year program. I mean, now all of a sudden, you've got these kids around all the time, and it's obvious in their results that you can see, how well they did in college. I mean, you look back at some of the kids and you put them up against kids that were ranked ahead of them in the juniors, and maybe those kids went away to a school that's 10 hours from home, and they spent their summers back at home, and there's nobody to practice with. Once you get to be a top 10, top 15, junior tennis player by the time you get 17 or 18 years old in some of these towns that a lot of these kids are from, usually practice with a lawyer or a doctor or somebody when you're 13 or 14. But by the time you've got a hammer, a good serve, and you're 17 or 18, there's nobody left to practice with. So just imagine how challenging it is in the summertime when kids are leaving the college campus to go home to where they're from and, try to have 90 days and keep their level and actually improve. It's tough. So, putting a fence around Ohio was part of, the plan, and with the rules that you're giving in NCAAs, it makes a lot of sense because, like I said, I mean, parents spend a lot of money on their kids' development. And I don't think parents would be going around the country spending all of their vacation time and all of their money if their kids practice and competed 144 days a year.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. With just a few more things on Metka, I did some homework. All-American, ranked number 2 nationally in doubles. And if he didn't start really playing the correct lineup, playing some matches to his third year, he won a bunch of matches. Singles 61 and 18, 77% winning percentage. Doubles 110 wins, 24 losses, 82%. But tell us a little bit. Commercial on Kevin Metka, a great student, engineer, won all these awards.
Oh, I mean, Kevin's unbelievable. He's an engineering major. I can go on and on with Kevin Metka. I mean, he had plantar fasciitis so bad that he could barely stand up. Never missed a match. Guy would be doing 2 or 3 hours a day in the training room just to get ready. Never missed practice. Never missed a match. I mean, was just a consummate professional. He was a team guy, team leader. Do anything for the young guys, teach them the way, and he's what a career. You can't say enough about the guy for what he did.
I think the point is I like to bring up is development. He started playing tennis as a 9th grader, and he just developed so much. One last thing on the Kevin Metka commercial, he certainly deserves it. He was interviewed on, I think, the campus newspaper and what would you tell an incoming freshman? He said, take out a piece of paper, write down 3 words, social, school, and tennis, and just circle 2 because you can only be good at 2 things. So I think that was something that the parents should hear. Tell us, how long have you been at Ohio State now? You were a player, assistant coach. Now you've been head coach, director. I think you're 23 years as a head coach. How long have you been there in total?
I played here for 3 years and was an assistant coach for 3 years, and then a head coach in my 23rd or 24th year right now. And so I've been here a while, but I've seen 3 or 4 different facilities, and seen a lot of. I was here when John Cooper was the football coach. I was here when Jim Trussell was the football coach. Here when Urban Meyer was the football coach, and here with Coach Day now. So I've been through some. I've seen a lot in Ohio State athletics in my time.
And can you tell us a Woody Hayes story? Are you a historian at all?
Well, I mean, with the Woody Hayes, my first boss was you said to keep it PG, but my first, my direct boss, well, my second direct boss, Bill Miles, was offensive line coach for Woody Hayes, and then he became the director of operations for football at under John Cooper. And Bill Miles would say that the only thing that Woody Hayes ever said after lunch is that he had to go take a Michigan. So sorry, I'm supposed to keep it PG-13.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Here I sit grunting and flexing. They just gave birth to a big long Texan. Yeah, there's all sorts of stories out there like that. But
he was.
But go ahead. What do
he
you?
Was quite a character. Drove his El Camino around and coached some football.
Yeah, you start studying football. Lou Holtz was an assistant coach under Woody Hayes. He tells all sorts of funny stories about Woody Hayes. Let's describe the 3-all match. I tell tennis parents, and again, mom and dad, got to listen to some of these points. Kids are so pressured. They're playing a 12 and under tournament, the local yokel, and I tried to describe to them, especially at the NCAA tournament, your last match out. Could you say a few things about 3-all matches?
Say that again.
Can you say a few things about 3-all matches? I just think of pressure. I like to tell people there's really one type of pressure, self-inflicted. I don't want to hear about peer pressure and parental pressure. But the 3-all match, I know Austin Krajicek very early in his freshman year at A&M had to play a 3-all match, and that's kind of
there's nothing quite like it. I see kids all the time. Kids start playing this tennis at 12 and under, 14 and under. They start playing for keeps at a young age, and they have some success. And then with most of the parents, they get so wrapped up in it that these kids feel the pressure at home. Sometimes these kids lose. It's like a death in the family, and it really kind of stunts their growth as a player because the parents are so worried about the national rankings that I see some of these kids lose, and parents are just totally devastated. And it kind of gets you ready for that for that 3-all match, but there's nothing like it. It comes down to 3-all. It's a little different if you're at home than you're on the road. But I tell people all the time the thing that's changed the most is these big gigantic scoreboards. When I started coaching, it used to be you'd have some flip cards and you could barely see what the score was. So now all of a sudden there's pressure. You see these guys start getting to 2-2 in a match, and you see every point that somebody plays. As soon as the point's over, they start staring at that scoreboard to see where they're at, what's going on, and so they really see that it's coming down to them, and it happens probably 30 minutes before it really becomes 3-3, and you're the last match on, and everything goes out the window in the last match on. It's kind of like a lefty-lefty matchup when you're as a college coach and you're looking for matchups and you're trying to think, hey, how does this look or how does that look? You kind of, when you put a lefty on a lefty, you're like, gee, anything can happen. And, it's kind of what happens when it's 3-3. I've seen grown men go out there and hit 400 lobs because they were just too scared to hit the ball no matter what you told them. And it gets quite interesting. And at our level with Ohio State, with the teams that we're playing and things like that, we try to play as many top 10 matchups as we can during the year. And it's amazing to see, how what a 3-all match can do to somebody's tennis game. Because they're just out there just trying to survive and trying to win for their team. And, the pressure's big. And like I said, I've seen serve and volley guys stand 8 feet behind the baseline and do nothing but lob.
Wow, especially if it's a dual match is one thing, but if it comes down to the tournament at the end of the year, you basically, as you would say, you're going to go to your own banquet too early. The season's over. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, you try to get these kids to. We try to get them, as to play as hard and as consistent as you can to the fat part of the court for times like that. You're always going to have some tight times in a match, and we always tell them we want it to be our fault when they take the keys away to open up my door and the 6 keys that Ohio State gives me. When they decide they've had enough of me, I want it to be because I gave you the bad advice, not that you decided to go and hit moon balls or do something in the critical point. But for the most part, we try to get guys to play heavy and hard, in practice and every day, to get ready for those matches. We want it to be our fault. When we lose a match, I want it to be our fault. We try to take the pressure off the guys any way they can because, they know how much they're playing for, and especially when it's 3-3 and, they need to be able to step up and hit the ball. We try to work on that every day in practice because we know 3, 4, 5, 6 matches every year are going to come down to, it's going to be very, very tight and the margins are going to be thin.
Describe the fat part of the court. I know your players have heard that a million times.
We like to go 2 feet inside the single sideline, 3 feet inside the baseline. And, we try to pepper that corner. We try to get to 90% of our pace at 90, 95% consistency. And, we try to do it over and over just for there's nobody that knows more tennis than you. And, these matches are going to come down. They're going to be tight. And who's going to have the courage to be able to hit the ball at a good speed and, keep it out of the middle of the court. And, we're working on it. You've seen us practice. We're working on it every day because obviously we know that there's going to be matches that, it might not be at 3-3, but, there's going to be a lot of matches at number 1, 2, and 3 singles when you've got a lot of guys that are legitimately top 500 in the world tennis players playing 1, 2, and 3. If they got a chance to play 28 pro tournaments a year, these guys would be 500 in the world, 450 in the world. But these guys are playing 8, 9 pro tournaments a year because they're playing a full college season. So you get a lot of guys ranked 700, 800 in the world, but they're really 450, 500 in the world. And when you put two guys 500 in the world playing each other, you're going to have 2 guys that can hold serve. So every match you're going to have 3 or 4 tight points of set. I mean, it's not a walk in the park. I mean, these matches, we just got done having a 25K on campus that just ended. I mean, you've got to. So you've got one umpire and one lines person, and they're trying to call the court. So you have so much to worry about. But they just, it comes down to an inch here, an inch there. One bad call goes against you. I mean, people used to say, "Oh, it's not one call, it's not one call." But nowadays, with the way guys hold serve and the way guys do things, I mean, one bad call can be the difference of 7-5 or 5-7.
One of your freshmen won that, right?
Alex Bernard ended up winning that tournament.
Now, is he a redshirt freshman or just a true freshman?
No, he's a freshman. He's a regular freshman.
And then he certainly comes in with a pedigree where he won't redshirt, correct?
Yeah, I mean, tennis is a little different than some of these sports. Some of these sports, like football, some of these sports, you can play four games and still keep a red shirt. In tennis, once you play one college tennis match, for your school, whether it be the All-American Championships, Big Ten singles, regional, you can no longer redshirt. The only way you could redshirt is quite possibly if you got injured and get a medical redshirt. But the redshirt's out the window as soon as you play one match.
Ty, I talked to you a month or so ago, a young player that I've worked with is being recruited by you this year. We were talking about pressure. I refer to the ITFs as idiots traveling foolishly. You have some kids that have, like, on the boys' side, they've got a 9 UTR, and they're traveling internationally to play all these tournaments. That's one thing that's interesting about the UTR is you can see the level of the ITFs. I mean, there's level 5, level 4, 3, 2, 1. But can you talk a little bit about playing where the pressure is? I think so many people are always trying to play up, and they're avoiding the confrontation of playing like the kid next door. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of pressure. You see it everywhere. I mean, you like the kids that handle the pressure. You like the kids that stay in their own age group, but you understand that kids are going to have to, look for some veteran competition. And there are some kids that deserve to play up, and there are some kids that, can handle playing up. But,
it is kind of wild to, see, even in some of these pro tournaments, you'll have guys that are showing up to play pro tournaments. You'll have two unbelievable college players in the first round of quali playing each other that are, top 30 in the country in college tennis. And right beside them in the first round, you could have, two guys that, don't have too many results at all. And, so it's different, but I like those guys that, have, show up at every tournament, play every back draw match, lose a match, come back, play the back draw, start fighting it out for 2 matches in a row in the back draw, just keep competing and grinding. The tournament's a week long and there's 2 eliminations. I kind of like the double elimination in the U.S. nationals and things. You don't get that in the ITF tournaments. It's one and you're done. But as a college coach, you like to see which guys are coming back after having a bad loss at 4 p.m. and now they're back at the practice courts at 7 a.m. warming up for their 8 a.m. match, and they're going to have 2 back draw matches that day. And that does a lot for a coach. Now, as a coach, selfishly, I'd like to see parents put a little more pressure on these kids in the doubles because when I go out to junior tournaments, it's like parents they play doubles, and it's like there's pressure on the parents during the singles matches. They feel pressure, and the kids feel pressure. But then all of a sudden, the doubles comes around, and there's smiles on the parents' faces, and they're kind of having a good time. And it's like doubles doesn't bring that same intensity from the parents. And then all of a sudden, you get to college, and the number one thing's that darn doubles point, and it's 6-game set with no ad scoring. And all of a sudden, these kids don't understand how important doubles is because they've been playing doubles just kind of as a release, kind of unwind at these national tournaments. It's like nobody ever plays doubles for keeps or where parents get mad over doubles results. I've seen parents get mad at singles results, but very rarely do I see parents get mad at the doubles results.
With here in this area, Palm Beach County, we have the Battle of Boca every weekend. And Mikhail Yuzny, who was number 8 in the world, won $14 million. He was watching 4, I'd say they're 15, 16 years old. And they're playing doubles, and all 4 players are staying back. I do feel sorry for college coaches because by the time you get a kid who's 18, he's maybe played 10 years of doubles the wrong way.
It's just you've got to. That's the toughest thing, and you get a lot of parents asking about that, and you need guys that play doubles the right way, but because of everything that's gone on, and it just it hasn't, but it's tough on a coach because now all of a sudden I'm sitting around with kids that haven't been to the net much to shake hands, and you want to develop them, but the doubles point is so important that sometimes it's best to keep them back and try to find a freshman's backhand volley. It's not a bad plan to be out there, playing another team, and they've got freshmen serving and volleying who haven't played a ton of doubles and haven't had a ton of success, and you're sitting back there with a guy that can find your backhand volley. It's enticing to, want to try and get that doubles point in the win. But, you wish these kids growing up would, you wish this junior tennis would kind of incorporate that you have to serve and volley on first and second serve, in the doubles. I mean, something that would get the developing happening sooner rather than later.
No, I think certainly in the line of work I'm in, working with players in their formative years, it'd be nice to have a mission where if teaching pros of junior tennis players, in their, again, formative years where they had to play one bounce doubles, no poaching on the first ball, all 4 players come to the net. And if they started doing that when they were 10, 11, 12 years old, they would develop the instincts to go forward. But yeah, you're right.
That's a good, even on all levels, even if, had 2 or 3 tournaments like that a year, even in college, if they had one tournament in the fall like that or something that, with that would be, something that would help, increase the level of the game. But, right now, there's just so much pressure on that doubles point. I'll tell you, everybody's so much in the past 27 years in college tennis. I mean, the coaching is just gone, just incredible. When I started, it used to be,
either a grad assistant or an assistant coach making $18,000 a year. So then, you'd never get guys that were 300, 400 in the world in pro tennis, coming back to coach in college, because they sit out there for 2 or 3 years and lose money playing pro tennis. And then all of a sudden they'd have to lose money to be a college coach. So, you lost a lot of great minds, but nowadays you're getting some great minds in the college game, because, it's very high paid assistant coaching positions, high paid head coaching positions. And, starting next year, it's looking like they're going to do away with the volunteer assistant. So it's going to be 2 paid assistants.
Oh, wow. Talk a little bit about, and I've heard you say it maybe the most difficult part of your job, the guys that are not in the lineup. Obviously, Kevin Metka was special, and your program made him more special. How about keeping those guys motivated that are 7 or 8? I know when my son Connor was playing for you, he had a chance to be in the lineup most of the time, or if not all the time, and he was there's 2 guys behind him at ATP points. How do you share that with the listeners? How do you keep those guys motivated that are not cracking the lineup right away?
I mean, we talk about that all the time too. I say, to be great, you've got to know how to sit the bench. I think I hurt myself in my own professional career because I never knew how to sit the bench. When I played in bitty league baseball, football, basketball, everything, I always started, and then you get to college, and very few get a start as freshmen on great teams. And you look at it in football, you look at Ohio State football, and these guys will come in as 5-star recruits, and they very rarely start as a freshman. So I think learning how to sit the bench is important, and it's very important for when you decide to turn professional, because you've got to, very few guys are going to navigate the professional tennis in 18 months or under. It just doesn't happen. I mean, it's just so tough. I mean, of course there are the freaks that are just unbelievable. You look at Tommy Paul or the Taylor Fritz. There's going to be guys like that, but there's going to be a lot of guys that have to you go the JJ Wolf path, where you're down there, or the Eubanks, who's had an incredible career, and not too many people know of him, but what a career he's had, or the Kozlov. You get so many different guys out there, and it's tough to get to that top 100 in the world. And if you've always started everywhere you've gone, and you might not be willing to sit out there for 3 years in the challenger level in the 25Ks to get your chance for your cup of coffee. You might just decide you're going to take your ball and go home.
Right.
And I think, we talk about it all the time about being able to sit on the bench. We look at the football players. I have guys, tell me who are the best 5 guys recruited last year for Ohio State football, and what are their stats this year? Where are they? They're trying to put on weight. They're trying to eat right. They're trying to get stronger. They're trying to do everything to get on that field. And, that's what you guys have to do. You can't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. I mean, we don't call it a practice. We call it a get better session. And every day we get out here, we have to get better.
Oh, that's great. Powerful. With I first saw you play in the 18 indoors, 7-6-0, you beat Byron Black. I think the comment you made about the connection between the brain and the bench. I mean, a lot of tennis kids have never sat on the bench. Their parents, especially at a lower level, the parents just keep writing a check and cross their fingers. I think also, too, is that junior tennis players, they're not so used to the locker room, where you go in the locker room with your teammates. Did you let your teammates down? And then you're there with your coaching staff, or I think too many times, it's mom and dad. The kid gets in the back of the minivan and they drive off. But talk a little bit about the locker room. I mean, how a senior helps out a freshman, that type of thing.
I mean, that's what that's what they always talk about culture. They write books about culture, but that's where it is. It's in the locker room. It's, or the older guys, making sure they're keeping everybody accountable, or they're there for, the right reasons. As a coach, we always, when I'm recruiting, I want to get somebody who tennis is their fun part of the day. You know, you see all of a sudden kids, you know, practice starts at 1 and now it's 15 till 4, and they realize practice is over at 4, and they start to get happy and move their feet and smile on their face and move their feet around and be real loose and having the time of their life. You know, they start to get happy because practice is going to be over, and they think the fun part of the day is getting ready to start. And you know, in this business, you got to find kids that the practice, the get better session is their fun part of the day. And you know, you've got to have great leaders and guys in the locker room that you know, talk to guys and have to be selfless, because there's a lot of times. I mean, you mentioned it. We've been fortunate enough to have some great players come to Ohio State, and you know, some guys who are in their 3rd or 4th year could lose their starting spot. But you know, to be a captain, to be a leader, you can never have a bad day. Of course, you're going to play, you know, bad tennis. I mean, if you're playing tennis 320 days a year, you can play some bad tennis, but you can never have a bad day. And, you know, these young guys need to learn from you what it's like, or you know, I can sit there and tell them till I'm blue in the face, but it resonates well when you have strong leaders.
You've been on the Ohio State campus for more than a quarter of a century. Obviously, you've got to interact with the coaches and the players from other sports. How about your players? I mean, 4 years goes by pretty quick. Do they get a chance to be around all the other athletes?
You know, we've got it pretty good because tennis and football share the same training room. So, you know, we've had some guys live with some football players, and they're in there, the ice bath and getting treatment and stuff like that. So they get a good dose of the football team. And, we get some guys out to watch our matches, which is pretty cool. And you get some football players coming out to hit some tennis balls with the guys. But, you know, for the most part, Ohio State, 36 varsity sports, and it's pretty cool. I mean, there's go watch a fencing, go watch a pistol, you know, match, a fencing match. I mean, it's you know, pretty cool. Ohio State puts a lot of money. I mean, there aren't too. I mean, you can go through a lot of the schools in the country, and they'll play 19, 20, 21 sports, but Ohio State plays 36 sports. So there's always a game to go to, and to go cheer on, you know, some of your brothers from some other sports. And it's pretty darn, it's actually pretty exciting. Over 1,100 student athletes at Ohio State.
Wow. My son Connor, I forgot that you guys share the locker room. He tells a story. For our listeners, Connor has red hair, and he's getting rubbed down, getting a massage, and he hears his voice, when's red done? I might have a little few the details wrong, but you know, the trainer says it's like 7 minutes, and Connor's got a sense of humor. He goes like 70 seconds goes by, and he gets a thump. He goes, "Hey, Red, you're done." And Connor turns over, and it's Urban Meyer, head football coach.
Yeah, I don't know much about that, so I'm not commenting on that one. But we're right there with, you know, we've seen it all. Coach Meyer plays some tennis. Coach Day plays some tennis. So we spend some time together with all of those guys, and it's, you know, great people. And, you know, Woody Hayes said, I bet you win with people. And, you know, been fortunate enough to have some great coaches and some excellent student athletes, guys that, you know, really got it. And main goal was to get better every day. And, you know, that's what it has to be like, because most of these junior kids coming up, you know, it's amazing to me, you know, how many guys you have that play junior Wimbledon, junior French Open, junior Australian Open, and they honestly think they're a year away from being in the main draw at the Grand Slams just because they were there in the juniors. It can't be. I mean, 95% of the guys that played the junior Grand Slams, I mean, they're 4 years minimum away from ever sniffing those grounds again.
Yeah. No, there's a famous story about Federer. He won the title at Wimbledon, junior Wimbledon champion, and then he was ushered off to go play futures in Switzerland. He actually lost to someone that we know quite well, Rodrigo Navarro. Rodrigo is 28, but when Federer tells the story, when he was driving away from Wimbledon, he really wanted to go to the Wimbledon ball, the party they have afterwards. And he was thinking to himself, he may never get back. Because just the fact that you win junior Wimbledon, there's no guarantee to come back and play in the main event. Ty, you mentioned you played other sports growing up. When did tennis become your primary sport? How old were you?
I broke my collarbone in 8th grade basketball and broke the thumb in 7th grade football. And then I went to voluntaries as a 9th grader, and 9th grader lived with Agassi and Martin Blackman in the same room. And sad to hear about Nick. But that's when it did. I was from a small town in Ohio, Zanesville, Ohio. Parents I was first generation tennis player, and, got into it just by luck, and, started having some success, and they didn't know what to do. Actually, Tennis Magazine did when I won 7 out of 8 nationals. They came in the 12 and unders. They did a 3-page article on me and took pictures of the house, and they came to Zanesville, and my parents didn't know what to do. They were just trying their best. They knew absolutely nothing. The only thing they knew about tennis is what they'd learned from 8 years old going to tournaments by the time I was 12, so they didn't know. They didn't, everybody in this tennis business always has a story. They did something, so they were trying to navigate, and 3 other children and things like that. So, they kind of made the decision that going to Nick Bollettieri's in 9th grade was the best that they could do. And, and it was, it's unbelievable. You find out how good you are. One court there's Courier, on another court there's Agassi. There's Mark Knowles down there. There's Aaron Crickstein hitting with Jimmy Arias over there. There's Carlene Bassett. It was there, but wasn't mature enough at that time to thrive, and it wasn't the right time for me at that time. And but wow, Nick Bollettieri was, imagine that. Being able to be so good at what you're doing, you can talk the top 7 out of the top 10, 14 and unders in America, that I've got your son's best interest in mind, and you'll get a lot of my attention.
Did you know at the time how great a ball striker Agassi was?
I was living with him, and when it all took off, we shared the same. I was living right there. He won the 18 and under. Well, he won the Bollettieri championships, beat Dan Naherney in 3 straight sets, and Dan Naherney was unbelievable. Must have been one in the country in the 18th when we were 14. He was actually one of our roommates, and wasn't a good night for us after Agassi beat him. But but Dan Naherney ended up, I think, tearing his knee. He was 40. He was like a senior. We were a freshman. But I think I don't know if he signed a contract or if he was going to get a contract, but I think he went up to hit an overhead at Georgia and tore his knee completely. It just, tore it like Joe Burrow. And I don't think he ever played again. He was the number 1 player at UCLA. He's from Maplewood, New Jersey. A guy by the name of Dan Naherney. Well, we were 9th graders, and it was in the fall of 9th grade in the Bollettieri championship. He was a senior in high school, signed to go to UCLA, number 1 player in the country in 18 and under. He was Agassi, this 14 and under, just thumped him in front of everybody at Bollettieri's, all the campers, all the regulars, all the pros, all the coaches, all the cooks, all the maintenance people that brought him every run around, had to go watch the match center court, and Agassi beat him like 3-3-3.
So he had you playing best of 5, huh?
Yeah, and then from there, Agassi was, he just took off, and and it wasn't too. At that time, what's his name though was the king, because he was probably like 16, 17 years old and top 10 in the world at that time. Crickstein.
Yeah.
And that was Nick's boy, Crickstein, and of course Jimmy Arias was one of his main dudes. So.
Yeah, Crickstein, Grosse Pointe, Michigan.
Grosse Pointe, Michigan.
He certainly could keep some balls in play. He did very well. I guess he won Kalamazoo at 16, and then he went to the Open, won a couple matches.
So it was. But you just keep grinding and keep battling, because it's there'll be some guys that make it through. But speaking of that class, all of a sudden. You've got Agassi, you've got Sampras, you've got Courier, you've got Chang, you've got guys like that coming through and making their moves. But I kind of feel sorry for yourself. That should be me. That should be. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself, because the next wave came through, and it was like Todd Martin, who
struggled to be top 20 in American junior tennis. And he was the same age as all of us, and nobody had ever heard of him. All of a sudden, he's coming through. Malachi Washington's coming through. Tarango's coming through. You know, there's just a host of Americans just following suit. Then you drop down a year, and, you know, you've got Stark, who was probably top 40 in singles and number 1 in the world in doubles. Jared Palmer, that was probably had the same credentials as Stark. You know, and it just, Mark Knowles, a year younger. It just, you know, you just got to keep your head down. And if you're doing the right things and working as hard as you possibly can, good things will happen. But it's been an interesting ride in tennis, because it's not easy. You know, the burnout's real, and it's gotta dot the I's and cross the T's.
With the two types of players in college, we say there's two types of college tennis players: the blue chip, and then the project player. And then in pros, there's two types of players: the teenage sensation, like an Alcaraz. You're playing on TV and you're a teenager,
right.
Or you're a late bloomer and you just got to hang in there. How about James Blake? Is he the same age as you?
No, he's a lot younger. I was actually coached against him my first year as an assistant
Oh, wow.
out in the tournament when he was playing for Harvard. So he's probably 7 years younger probably, but he was, you know, but it's you can't say it. I mean, it's amazing. I remember a guy that I trained with a lot down at Saddlebrook, which the old Harry Hopmans. I mean, a guy by the name of Jeff Grant, who, you know, snuck through. I think he went round of 32, maybe round of 16 of the U.S. Open one year. You know, a lot of guys packed up their bags, and sad because they couldn't make it, didn't want to stay out there for 3 or 4 years to grind, to have a chance. And he stayed right with it, played at Duke. He was my age, played at Duke when I was at Ohio State, and had a solid college career, but just kept getting better. And he actually made that movie, The Journeyman, with Mark Kyle.
Yep.
So it's amazing, you know, how, you know, if you stick in there and you keep getting better and work at it, you know, good things can happen. But I really do feel, getting back to what you talked about, and I got off on a tangent, but, you know, sitting on the bench and understanding that, you know, it's going to be a process, and, you know, getting your little victories, and just trying every day to stack good days on top of good days will ultimately pay off if you're that mature guy. And of course, Kevin Metka was. With
the reason I mentioned James Blake, he said there was no way that he was ready for the pros when he first went out to college. Probably one of the best stories ever is Stan Smith. He got cut from being a ball boy when he was 15, 16 years old, and ends up being a U.S. Open Wimbledon champion. Talk a little bit about J.J. Wolf. I was up there. It was just a matter of circumstance. Andy Fitzell and I did a camp in Cincinnati, and Connor had already graduated, but he had left a car there. So we went from Cincinnati to Columbus to pick up the car, and then we went to Philadelphia. But I was there the first day that Andy started working with J.J. Wolf. He's ranked pretty high now, isn't he? Close to top 50?
Yeah, I think he's around 60, 65. You know, he might have been in the 50s, but I think he might have ended the year in the 60s. But tremendous athlete, great, just unbelievable. I think the story goes it's 30 kids, 30 grandchildren in the Wolf family, and 29 of them played college athletics.
Yeah, genetics. I mean, he's got a pair of legs, that's for sure.
And he, you know, a strong guy with racket head speed, and I mean, it was just swing a racket, sound like a jet plane. Most people swing a racket, and the air sounds like a motorcycle, but sound like a jet plane when it came through. And he had good speed, good, darn good player, and you know, excited to see what he's going to do. You know, he's got you know, a lot of talent, and starting to finish at the net more and more, and honestly believe that he can make a move into the top 50.
Yeah, that's not so easy to do, huh?
It's not easy at all. I mean, Jiminy Crimer.
How about
so tough.
How about Sampras?
Sampras, I mean, just
you're the same age as Sampras. So what's your recollections from the early days of him when he had the two-handed backhand and made the change to the one-handed backhand?
practiced a good bit with him when he was one in the world at Saddlebrook. He trained out of Saddlebrook and grew up with him, but didn't see him a ton. Actually, I think he beat me in the quarterfinals back when the national hard courts were in Burlingame, California. You know, back when they had the indoors, hard courts, clay courts, and the nationals.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's obviously one of the greatest ever, and spent a decent amount of time with him throughout the years. And, you know, 14, 15 years old, all the way up to like, I don't know, when I was practicing with him, probably 92, 93. And good guy who's one heck of a player.
Yeah, it was I guess 1990. Connors had that run in 91, but the year before, Sampras won the U.S. Open. What a serve.
Say that again?
No, it was just the way he served when he won the U.S. Open, 19 years old. Actually, somebody I was taught to teach tennis by had the record for being the youngest U.S. Open finalist, Welby Van Horn, but then he was just a finalist. He had lost to Bobby Riggs, 1939, using a Dunlop Max Ply that McEnroe used 40 years later. But, yeah, Joe Brandy was coaching him, and, yeah, it seemed like it was out of nowhere, but you certainly know that if you really know tennis, no one comes out of nowhere. They've definitely paid their dues, and
yes, like you said. I mean, that guy was a stud. And next thing you know, he's showing up 3 months later at the Nationals using a one-hand backhand. Didn't whine about it. Didn't do anything. Was just out there competing. And his coach wanted him to go to a one-handed backhand, and you know, he took a lump or two early on, and obviously paid off. And great athlete. You know, get off the ground, could move. On the run forehand was pretty darn good, but obviously everything he did was built around that first and second serve.
Well, I think long-term vision, Pete Fisher, coaching tennis as a hobby, and had, as the story goes, Sampras watching film, mostly of Laver, but Rosewall and all the old greats. I tell people all the time that Sampras was number one in the world for 6 years in a row. I think that's how the record went, but he wasn't number one in his house. His sister was better than him for a longer period of time than that, because Stella was a little bit younger.
I'd like to know when that ended.
Yeah, she's so laid back, easygoing. I like to mix it up a little bit. And I said, "Is it true that I was talking to her one time? Is it true that Pete could beat you when he was 10?" And all of a sudden, her chin went up and said, "No." You know, the Bryan brothers do the same thing with their mother. She was a really good player. I think Kathy Blake. That they say, "No, Mom, I could beat you when I was 9." And then she looks up and, like Gloria Connor, she used to have Jimmy's number. It's hard to believe. I read this in his autobiography. He never dropped a set to his mother until they practiced. They played a set at Kalamazoo. So you have to guess that Connors was probably playing Kalamazoo 16s, maybe when he was 14. I would know. That's just a guess. But tell us a little bit. We'll let you go here. Just 2 more things. Tell us about your team. How's your team look for this spring season?
Team's good. You know, I think there's probably 10 teams that could win it all, and you know, I feel we're one of them. But you know, you have to earn it, and you've got to beat people, and you've got to win on the road. A lot of people don't realize how tough tennis is. You know, because most of these players play in neutral site environments all the time. And you're talking junior tennis, you're talking pro tennis. You know, very few guys get that opportunity to play on their home courts in any big matches in pros or in juniors. So, you know, people don't realize how that home court advantage is how big it is, and how tough it is for, you know, teams you could be 2, 3 in the country, but you go on the road and you play some team 15 in the country, and they put 1,000 people in the stands. People are going crazy. It's tough. It's tough in this.
Yeah, I was with you. I was with your team. We played Georgia at Georgia. Manny Diaz, who I know through Welby, he was taught to play by Welby. I was taught to teach by Welby. He called me up and apologized. I mean, I've been to a couple, just two. I've been to two Davis Cup matches on the road. And that day at Georgia, it was worse than a Davis Cup match. It was Ohio State.
Yeah,
It seemed like it was Ohio State against the world and the referees.
Yeah, it was. There's always don't argue balls and strikes, but yeah, it's real. People don't understand. You know, it doesn't. You see it all the time in some of these challengers that are played on home surfaces of these college kids, and they get some big results because of being able to play matches and on a court that they've spent 1,000 hours on. And some of these guys are flying from the challengers and coming from Davis Cup and traveling on 3 plane flights to get there, and then they've got 24 hours to be ready to play. And they're sitting there at 170 in the world playing against some college guy 700 in the world on their home courts, and it's absolutely a 50-50 match. And now all of a sudden you make it a college environment where in these pro tournaments it doesn't ever end up a college environment, but all of a sudden now you've got teams coming to you, and it's a Friday night, and you've got 750 people in the crowd, and they're yelling and screaming, cheering, and flipping out over every call that the opponent makes. I mean, it's tough to win on the road.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One, to publicly thank you for letting my son be part of your program. He was there. He played in 3 out of 4 Final Fours, if you count indoor, outdoor.
Connor Smith gave it his all, played hard. I thought he would be for sure a 15-year top 40 in the world doubles player in pro tennis. And, I always think back. I said, somebody asked me, what do you think happened? I said, I think he won that singles challenger, did well, and got to 199, 195 in the world, and then started chasing singles when he should have been chasing doubles. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know too much.
I was with Connor. In genetics with singles, I mean, certainly he wasn't the fastest cat. I know in those Final Four, I'm not really a doting dad, but in college tennis, it's not really a perfect record. He was 23-2, but that sometimes he could say he could have been losing, but your team won, so the DNF did not finish. But I one time was with Connor with Raven Clausen, who. Clausen was so nice to Connor when they were on the road, and Connor goes, I thought he was a giant, because they're like 6 or 7 years apart. And, then Connor's, maybe 6'1", and Raven's 5'9", or whatever, give an inch to either one, either way. But so I was trying to talk to Connor about doubles, and he goes, well, I mean, I don't want to just play challenger doubles. And I go, you're sitting next to a guy who hung in there till he was 29. Eric Buterak pretty much threw him a bone because he knew his work ethic and knew he really knew doubles, and then they had a run out to the finals, and then next thing you know, he's in top 10 in the world, or like Krajicek just made top 10.
Yeah.
But that stick-to-itiveness but no, I think just like with Metka, the work ethic that you instill in your players, it has to help them for life. I mean, you guys work so hard. I think that's what everybody says about your program.
Yeah, we work, and he was certainly a talented tennis player, and was fun. I miss putting him on those courts with Rolla because he thought I kissed Blas Rolla's butt, and he thought I was extra tough on him. So anytime I wanted to have a good day, at the end of a 2-hour practice, have him and Rolla play an 8-game pro set, set my butt right there next to the court. And Connor Smith would compete like an animal and just stare me down every time he hit a good shot because he thought that he liked beating my boy. He thought he was beating my boy.
Actually, the last NCAAs that he played in for you, I couldn't go. My mother, she was just on her deathbed, and so I remember you asking me, how can you get Connor to play better? And he's playing 3 for you at that time, at his second year at Ohio State, and I said, just get him mad. And I remember Connor just saying, Ty Tucker's just riding me. He's just telling me I'm the worst number 3 in the country, and he's just pushing my buttons, but I would just smile. But Connor, when he was a kid, he would be looking at airplanes going over, and some kid would accuse him of being a cheater, and next thing you know, he'd put the pedal to the metal, and he could win the first set and go away in the second set. But it was always very good when the person on the other side would make him mad.
Top 3 humor too. Top 3 in all my time humor.
Humor, that's good to know.
Yeah, good humor. Good humor. Make you laugh. Great voices. I mean, do it all. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Tell me last question. Tell me, what do you need?
Yeah. The one thing I was going to say is that Connor, he can do some comedians better than they can do themselves. But just general advice. Kid wants to play college tennis. The numbers are tough. I share these and I don't want to scare anybody away, but less than 3% of junior players play college tennis. They don't crack the lineup as a freshman. A lot of them go away. And so 85% of players, give or take a few percentage points, they don't make the lineup. But what general advice would you have for parents, teaching pros, and players to play college tennis?
I mean, teaching pros, to me, results matter. Hope I'm not going against you. I mean, let's, these guys need to win some matches and shake some hands and, get them out there and, competing. I run across so many kids that are always playing the big game, and the big game never shows up. Hitting out, and, still, obviously, you've got to go for it, and you've got to be smart, and you've got to do some things. But I think kids have to have a great base, and they have to, be able to compete. And for the parents out there, it's just, I would say, for the better ones and the kids, it just can't be a death in the family, a loss, because the kids feel it. Next thing you know, kids, all of a sudden, you see it all the time. I watch it in these pro tennis, these 25Ks, these challengers I have. All of a sudden, the guy's playing great, gets to the finish line, drops 4 more feet behind the baseline, starts curling the ball around the court, hoping someone's going to miss. And that's not what he got him to the finish line. He was stepping in, hitting, but now all of a sudden, he's 5-7 minutes from winning, and he's gotten a little tight, and he's just hoping the guy loses.
No, one thing I like that you say, actually, we interviewed a young George Goldoff, and he mentioned your name, and you can make changes in your game and compete at the same time. If you have to change your toss, you're trying to keep your racket higher, longer on the backhand side, whatever it is. We do have some kids come to us when they're 13 years old and their game's a total train wreck. So we do tell people, there's a time where you can take 3 months off from tournaments, but the bottom line is you got to be able to compete. And I think that's one thing that people learn at Ohio State is they just learn to compete. Jeremy Wurtzman, we interviewed him, and he thinks the world of you. And I coached him when he was a kid, and he said that Ty Tucker makes every practice seem like it's the round of 16 in the NCAA tournament. There's so many people that say great things. You've got to get the most out of it. That's my job, is to get the most out of everybody and get them to spots they didn't think they could get to. And, for the Kevin Metkas and, all the guys that, got the opportunity to beat on guys that were 5 on tennis recruiting when they were 255, it makes it worthwhile. And, you can go anywhere you want in this game if you can stay injury free, and you really, it's your fun part of the day. If playing tennis is your fun part of the day, and most of these kids, it's weird because, they start to burn out, the 10 and under champions, the 12 and under champions, and the 14 and under champions, they start to burn out. But, that's when the coaches have to do what you said earlier about no bounce tennis, and, get them to the net and start spending 65% of the time on stuff that they need to get better on, instead of just, standing 4 feet behind the baseline, swatting balls around. Yeah, just to sign off, you can have the last word, but I certainly have great respect for what you do. Braden, I developed this tennis teaching program that got national recognition 100 years ago, but Vic used to say, well, people will either respect or resent you. But I have so much respect for what you guys do at Ohio State. If people have that work ethic, I really think that anybody who has a team that's won over 200 dual matches in a row, you're doing something right. And I've asked you this before, is that I really think the governing body of tennis, the USTA, should have someone like yourself be a voice for coaching. I don't know. I love it. I love the coaching, and can't hope the listeners know there's nobody out there that knows more about tennis, the fundamentals, the strategy, all points than you do. And been a joy getting to know you through the years and listening to you and talking to you, because, like I said, you run a lot of people in this game who say they did this and did that, but you've been there through it all. And I appreciate everything you say about us, and
we're lucky to have Connor and you in our camp for a while, and it's nice to know that the experience was so good that you have nothing but great things to say about us here at Ohio State, and that's what makes it worthwhile. But I couldn't do it to anything that I do or we do or whatever we're doing without guys or parents that were buy in, and we try to tell guys nobody in the country is going to outwork us for the first 100 minutes of practice, and then we get to the important part where you're going to play sets, and there's going to be a winner and a loser, and you're going to show me that you want to win. And we sit right down there after running guys for 100 minutes of practice and start playing sets. And we've had a pretty decent recipe, and we've had some good luck, but you're just not going to do it without great coaches and great student athletes. So
I tried to get Henry Squire, raised in Germany, father's Australian.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't even think I'm allowed to talk about other people. So,
but okay,
other past college players. Yeah.
But anyway, I remember just telling his dad. I said, "Hey, you've done well in real estate. Why don't you sell a house?" Because they waited so long before they committed. You'd already, there wasn't a scholarship for him by the time they decided to go there, and because it's just character, and you certainly bring that out in people. But last thing, who's going to win the football game this weekend? What's the score going to be?
You know what? Nervous.
Does Ty Tucker actually take time away from tennis to watch that football game? Of course.
What do you mean? I'll be front and center at that game.
That's great.
God, what am I going to say? 34-24 Buckeyes.
There you go.
All righty.
Yeah.
You have a good one, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, awesome. Thanks so much for doing this.
You.
Appreciate it. I know the listeners get a lot out of it. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Ty Tucker. I could listen to Ty Tucker stories, his players. My son is fortunate enough to be one of them. But I think just to end by saying what Jeremy Wertzman said, that makes every practice is important. The ball doesn't know, the net doesn't know, the racket doesn't know. It's a human element. And I really think that, self-inflicted pressure, put pressure on yourself. You get up in the morning, you make your bed, you go, you got to do this. When my son signed, he transferred from Florida State to Ohio State, so he signed, and so fortunate to be able to go there. I remember Ty calling me up, and it's something like 157 days until there's the next match. And then when he would be on holiday, just to call up, and he just wants, okay, what's he doing today? The guy is nonstop. I don't really think that Ty will be able to retire. I think that he's one of those guys that I don't think he can go a day without running practice. But that phrase I mentioned for Bollettieri, Nick Bollettieri with his health, age 91, but 1 in a million. But really, the line should be 1 in a billion. And in coaching, being a human relationship, being a chemistry, being a magic, I think Ty Tucker really defines the definition of coach that I like best. Is you bring out the story out of the player that they wouldn't bring out of themselves. But one, thank Ty Tucker for being part of the podcast, and two, thank you for listening. But another podcast in the books. Thank you very much.